Welcome to Neuro Mythbusters. Today we are going to be exploring many myths about memory. But first, it's important to get a basic idea about how memory works. At the most basic level, memory begins at the synapse between two neurons. A neuron is the functional unit of the nervous system that communicates with another neuron by electrical signals. Electrical signals are sent across from a presynaptic neuron to a postsynaptic neuron through the synapse. As a result of this transmission, chemical changes occur in both neurons so that electrical signals pass easily, increasing the synaptic strength. The number of electrical signals that pass through is important, as only a moderate amount will result in short-term memory. However, as the pre- and postsynaptic activity increases over a period of time, the changes in the cells become permanent, and long-term memory can be formed. At the systems level, information comes through our brain and relays it to the thalamus, where different nuclei are contained pertaining to a number of different sensory processes. The thalamus then sends information to the hippocampus, where cellular connections are strengthened to increase learning. Eventually, the signals are relayed to appropriate cortexes for long-term storage of information. Then the information that is stored is recalled and used by the frontal, parietal, and temporal lobes. While repetition is important for memory, the time interval between each repetition is what determines whether information is stored in your short or long-term memory. So whereas using flashcards to carry information at once may be useful for short-term memory, to ingrain something into your long-term memory, it is better to repeat information a few times over a course of days. This is known as the spacing effect. Any more repetition than this is just a waste of time. A particular study has identified the spacing of time intervals that is best for long-term memory to an expanding schedule. An expanding schedule is when information is studied in short intervals at first, like on day 1, 2, and 3, and then in a long interval, like day 7, before being recalled on day 9, for example. This expanding schedule is a lot more effective than a contracting schedule, in which information is studied in long intervals first, followed by short intervals of time, because the short intervals at the beginning of the expanding phase help trigger the retrieval of the memory at each repetition. It is found that trying to recall information while the brain is still encoding information will strengthen the memory. The spacing effect is in contrast to the mass presentation, which is when all information is repeated in one sitting without interruptions, better known as cramming. When you're just cramming all the information at once, your brain is not given the opportunity to retrieve information, and therefore the memory is not as strong. A spaced interval method is also more effective because the person has an opportunity to remember the context in which he or she learned the information each time they review the material, whereas while cramming, the context is all the same and the importance of the context in which the information was learned blurs together. So, going back to the memory model, repeating information over a long period of time will result in strengthening the synapse between the pre- and postsynaptic cell. This is because the second time you are presented the material, the same stimulus will reactivate the same pathways faster. Waiting a day to repeat the information can help consolidate a newly formed memory, since neuronal pathways for a particular memory strengthen over time and permanent changes occur, leading to consolidation. Waiting too long to review the information will weaken the neuronal pathway for that memory.
Have you ever thought you could fall asleep listening to a lecture or a book on tape? Well, it turns out that while you're sleeping, your mind is pretty irresponsive to any external stimulus that comes near it. So sorry to break the bad news, but you're going to have to study hard like everyone else. Let's first combat this myth by discussing memory consolidation. Following the initial coding, memory consolidation then follows, and this refers to a process whereby a memory becomes more resistant to disrupting or exchanging external factors and becomes more stable. There are two parts of this consolidation: stabilization and enhancement. Stabilization usually occurs during the awake stage, followed by enhancement, which is predominantly during your sleep. Here's a diagram of the memory categories. So even though you are learning additionally during sleep, only during the awake state does new information enter the hippocampal CA3 region through the entorhinal cortex, and there it is stored temporarily. Non-REM sleep is also involved in the enhancement process. Here, a flow of information is reversed. The hippocampal efferents to the neocortex become predominant in their activity. These sleep spindles increase neocortical plasticity, thus promoting memory consolidation. So we are priming memory consolidation in non-REM sleep as early as stage 2 sleep. Therefore, it is highly unlikely that your brain will be responsive to learning from the external world. Furthermore, neurons that were activated during the learning experience are reactivated during sleep, and this only further shows that the threshold is reached where no new information is utilized.
Next myth is related to memory and learning and the auditory system. It's called the Mozart effect. Mozart, one of the most renowned composers in history, showed prodigious ability at an early age, composing over 600 pieces throughout his life. He was a genius. Does this mean that if you listen to his music, you will become a genius as well? The Mozart effect is the theory that listening to Mozart's music increases intelligence in infants. In 1993, researchers performed an experiment and concluded that listening to Mozart increases spatial temporal reasoning. The results were published in Nature magazine and later interpreted as a general increase in IQ. Soon, the media was taking advantage of this discovery and selling CDs and books to hopeful mothers. However, studies now invalidate this growing legend. Evidence confirms that results from the original experiment may have stemmed from a combination of many things, including mood factors and arousal factors. Furthermore, Mozart is now used as an add-on therapy in children with epilepsy. So although Mozart does not enhance intelligence, it has demonstrated other positive neurological effects.